I was doing wonderful today.
Yes, sir.
And
Woke up this morning.
Amen,
yes,
amen,
ma'am.
amen.
Amen. Best day we got.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. All right. So with no further ado, it's 12:35. We're gonna go ahead and get started today. So good. I was about to say morning. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's edition of Organizing Circle. Mimi, are we live on Facebook? Wonderful. So I would like to thank you and welcome our guests on both Zoom and Facebook to today, February 7th edition of Organizing Circle. Now, as you might have noticed or seen on our newsletter or social media page, today's Organizer Circle, we're gonna deal with the topic of exploitation in privately owned housing units. In part one, we're looking at resident concerns. And so I know we have Miss Lisa Davis on for Cleveland Avenue Homes, who I'm going to invite to speak to us in a second. The way we get to this topic, as a person working with resident leaders and having visited every one of our neighborhoods, one of the things that we've noticed is a pattern with dealing with specifically our complexes that are privately owned. And having seen a lot of the concerns from our resident leaders, all of you who have done absolutely wonderful jobs in your neighborhood, one of the things we wanted to do is talk about on a broader scale. We talk about it in our resident leader meetings, but we wanted to bring this issue to, or this topic to, Organize a Circle to talk about what's happening in our communities. What are some of the recurring issues that we see in multiple neighborhoods? Why are they happening? And then our part two of this on February 21st, we're going to dive deeper into solutions. We might touch a little bit of solutions today, but we're going to dive deeper into an action plan on how to actually do that on February 21st. So with no further ado, I also want to invite our special guests from the Partners for Prosperity, Miss Arlethea Patterson, who is also a former employee of Neighbors for Better Neighborhood, a marquee member of our community, and, you know, a person who many of us may be familiar with, and she does so many wonderful things in our community. So with no further ado, thank you for joining us today, Ms. Patterson.
Thank you for allowing me to join you all and the wonderful work that you continue to do at Neighbors for Better Neighborhood. So excited to see so many resident leaders who are still doing the work, which is a very hard job. Some people don't realize to do community work in the community. So I applaud each person who continues to do the work.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, so with no further ado, we're gonna have Miss Lisa I know she has a limited amount of time with us, but so we're gonna start off with Miss Lisa. And Mimi, if you can, could you make me a co-host, please? Okay, so let me share my screen. All right, can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful.
Yes.
So again, today's Organizing Circle, Neighbors for Better Neighborhood, Exploitation in Privately Owned Housing Units, Part 1, Resident Concerns. So we look forward to having a few resident leaders on here. I know we have one who hasn't joined us yet. Maybe she's having some issues. We'll get there though. Okay, so in no further ado, Miss Lisa, Cleveland Avenue Homes. Can you tell us a little bit about what's been going on in your community? I know y'all probably got a glimpse of that photo. It's a little graphic. I hope y'all already ate or didn't eat, or your stomach is in a safe place, because we got some photos that we gotta share coming from the Cleveland Avenue Homes neighborhood.
All right. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. We have a number of issues that's going on over here in Cleveland Avenue Homes, and the issues are the process of getting them fixed is the problem. We have sewer backup in our tubs, our toilets, our sinks, behind the walls in our apartments. We also have broken windows that has been broken in our apartment complexes, and they have not been put back in. They've been boarded up.
Yes, ma'am.
We also have issues with leaves. When they blew the leaves, whoever's supposed to come and get them up, no, they didn't. They clogged up the manholes. It's just, it's hard for me to start reaching out to the different resources. How you say command, follow, go through one resource to the next resource and to the next resource. And
Yes, ma'am.
hopefully I pray Ms. Patterson can give me some feedback on how to process these situations in an orderly manner. And I do apologize to everyone, but
So,
I can't stay all alone.
Miss
And
Lisa.
I will get back in touch with the Zoom thingy.
So can you just tell us a little bit? I know me and you have talked, but in this photo right here, in these photos, you talked about it, and you have dealt with it.
Okay, so I got a knock on my door one morning with the tub issue. It was backed up. It's literally like water is bubbling up through the drains and busting through. You see the toilet. It was one on there with the toilet you ain't show it, but you couldn't see it. But when I looked down in that toilet, the water was bubbling up from somewhere. So the roots maybe. It don't have anywhere to flush out from, but it's bubbling up in the drains. Show the one with the lady with that one with the white one stuff. That is actually where her washing machine was at, and it done burst through the pipes. And it's coming out of the walls. It's coming out of the walls. So this is something that's not sanitary. It's not sanitary. It's totally, you have children smelling and snuffing up stuff like this, and it's not fair. We need to have some kind of organized way for whoever is in charge of taking care of this kind of situation to be on it immediately, because one issue was it happened the weekend and they called for some emergency help and they didn't see nobody till Monday morning. And they was up in their apartments like that. That's not fair. That's not fair.
Yes, ma'am. And you said, so you did reach out to people. I remember when I came to your neighborhood the first time it happened, right? You reached out and were you told that the city could not do nothing initially?
Okay. With the ones with the tub?
Yes, ma'am.
We actually called the city, and they came. They definitely came, and they said that it was not the city's problem because this apartment complex is not contracted out to the city. They have their own contractors to come out. The only thing that they deal with is the sewer line. The thing that's in the middle of the street. I don't know what that is, but I always say anything is happening on a personal basis with backed up tubs, toilets, sinks, and stuff that the projects or owners have to get a private contractor to come and fix it. Because a city is not part of Cleveland Avenue Homes.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. And that's one of the highlights, I guess, of the conversation that we had. And to me, that took me down the whirlwind as I started to deal with the different issues that different neighborhoods had, and looking at the recurring. I'm a unfreeze the video and just come back to the screen with us all. So there are other neighborhoods, there are other photos as well that we did not upload. But when Ms. Davis shared with me that comment from the city, because she said they weren't contracted and they only deal with basically the pipes, then I started going to different neighborhoods. I talked to Ms. Burton in Ladera Crest. I talked to Mr. Carter in his neighborhood, and we had issues with trash. We had issues with so many things, and many of us would automatically assume that we contact the city council, we contact the resources related to our city, and these things would get alleviated in that manner. But that wasn't the case. So with this, it's like, okay, these are privately owned units. And when it's privately owned units, you got to deal with these issues in different manners. So it took me back, and what originally made me think about even Miss Patterson is long ago we had an issue with Rolling Hills community. That's also Mrs. Shakita Evans and Miss Evans. If you would like to speak, feel free. But I know that they had an issue a while back, and it took us down. I'm not gonna say a rabbit hole, but in an interesting, informational learning experience about residential units that's privately owned and how we properly deal with that. So, Ms. Patterson, if you would like to go ahead and start, I guess give us some input. Firstly, can you give us some background with the Rolling Hills situation and what was that about? Because I know from what we talked, it was something similar. It was some flooding, some piping issues originally in that community, correct? And so, can you just give us a brief understanding of what took place initially with that?
Sure. So what he's referring to is something that happened back in my time period when I was working at Neighbors for Better Neighborhoods as a community engagement associate there. And we received calls from residents regarding backed up sewer, the type of issues that you saw in the picture. But theirs had gotten to the point where it was flooding the homes. And so homes was filling with sewer and other things. But on top of that, what we see and the patterns that you all see is something that happens in subsidized and low income communities where resources are not allocated as they should, even though they receive dollars to do so. You'll also see a lack of response to repair requests. You will see, properties not being maintained properly, and that comes from either it comes from what you have seen across the country where investors are coming in buying up properties. They're private owners and they don't live in the city, so they're not there to see what is happening, and they don't have to deal with the backlash. They normally hire a property management team that is not affiliated, that comes from somewhere else. And so these people are disconnected from the community. They don't feel the connection that someone else or the repercussions. And so residents are put in a position to where they are being told the steps to follow to make all your requests known and they're sent to different folks, because this person will say, we don't deal with this with the city, and then the city will say, well, HUD needs to handle this. And so what is happening is there's not like a centralized focus and being intentional about making these repairs, and for different reasons. With with Rolling Hills, they had this sewer issue. And so working at Neighbors for Better Neighborhoods, everything is resident led, and we want to figure out how to help the community. So Nikita McDaniel and myself decided that we would go out and first surveyed the community on what all the issues were, and we found some deplorable conditions. The first home we went into, it was our shoes got wet from the sewer that was on in the carpet. The smell was just so profuse. And then what we found is that the property had been neglected prior. So our response to that was to first reach out to city officials and others to let them know about the conditions, but also to let the residents know the proper procedures, the proper protocol, how to ask for a repair request, how to follow up, and then if that doesn't work, who's next in line. And that is key. If you are receiving some type of subsidy from HUD, HUD should be the first person that you contact, which means that can be your worker. They're immediately supposed to send an inspection person out because they are required to make sure that you are living in habitable conditions. They've signed paperwork to say, we want to make sure that the conditions that you are living in are habitable. If for some reason you have an issue with your worker not following up and doing what they're supposed to do, then there is a HUD complaint line, a 1-800 number, an online form that you can fill out. This is what we did when working with Rolling Hills. This was why it was taken to the next level. We spoke with residents, found out that there were over 70 units that were in these conditions, which was really deplorable. Students was missing school, kids were getting sick with bacterial fungus infections. There's all sorts of things that were happening because of this. And so what we did was we worked with community to galvanize resources and to call a meeting. The meeting was like the city with code enforcement to talk about what the process would be, and various groups throughout the city who were concerned and wanted to help the community. But the biggest piece of what moved this forward was giving the 1-800 number to every resident in the community and saying, take pictures, take videos, make sure you have something in writing, document every person that you talk to. And when those residents began to call the HUD complaint line, they had so many residents call, they are required. They have to act within a certain amount of time. They actually sent someone from DC that came down to Rolling Hills and checked various units, only to realize that some of those units had been abandoned because they were in such deplorable conditions, but the property managers were still receiving subsidies. So that put them in legal ramifications. Not only that, but the city, of course, once the city had so many code violations, like what's occurring now in Ladera Crest, the city is actually suing the owners of Ladera Crest as we speak because of the community engagement work and residents coming forward and sharing what's going on. But the city will say to that owner, you have to comply. You have this many, and now you're being fined. So that is what's happening. But what we have found with these patterns, and again, what happens next is that investors then want to sell. And so while all of this is going on, how do we help and strengthen the resident who's still experiencing these conditions? And so sometimes we have to find outside sources to help with repairs if there's a change in guard with the ownership and things like that. But what's imperative is making sure that your HUD person knows, because it is a HUD violation for units not to be up to par.
Yes,
So hopefully that was helpful. I know I kind of
absolutely.
went off somewhere else a little bit, but
No, ma'am. That was perfect. So thank you. Okay, so far we have, and that's getting into our solutions. HUD representatives, contacting HUD representatives, getting residents to find everyone with issues and get them to either contact the representative or contact the hotline, the complaint line, the HUD complaint line. And we'll make sure we get that information to our resident leaders. Okay, so contact the complaint line, you contact the representative. In the meantime, there's issues in the communities. Now, I believe we do have a resident leader in Ladera Crest, and I know you mentioned them. So I know that's a big topic of discussion for our city, for our organization and your organization as well right now. So without Miss Burton being present, could you give us some background on what has taken place in Ladera Crest and how you guys have, I guess, assisted in dealing with these issues?
So again, like I said, residents reach out to us when they're having issues. So back in April of 2022, residents from the community reached out and said that they were receiving letters that the property management would no longer be accepting Section 8. Their concern was they were only given a small amount of time in which to move. And of course, we know there is a housing crisis in Winston, so that it was going to be a hardship for residents to try to find somewhere. And also, because rent has raised about 60% in the last year, we know that that is also going to be a hardship with a lot of folks over there living on fixed income or facing, low wages. So we reached out to the resident and had a meeting and kind of find out what their issues were, kind of talked to property management to find out, why would you send out letters to folks and only giving them a short period of time, and was there things to work out? And so what we decided that we wanted to do was, because we've worked with the community in the past and we know that there's some issues around their voices being heard, we wanted to work with them solely on, how to engage the people at the office, how to make sure that you find out all the information and to take pictures of the documentation. So they sent us all the documentation. And we actually decided it would be a good idea to have a meeting for the community, which spiraled into a meeting that turned into a city's meeting. Their alderman, the city council person came out, Burke, as well as some other community partners. And on the day of the meeting, we decided that we would do a news conference for community, because what sometimes can happen at meetings is that they can be overtaken by the other people who are there, and residents don't get a chance to speak, which is what the meeting is for. So they held a press conference in front of the Ladera Crest, and were able to share with the city, what their issues were. And after the meeting and returning up to speak, they found out that they were going to take Section 8. They changed their mind all of a sudden, and I think it may have something to do with just all the groups coming together to talk and collaborate to see if there are some things that could be worked out. United Way, my employer, and some other groups made some collaborations and some agreements to keep people housed. And so fast forward to now, we did a checkup to see how things were going. At that time, there were promises made to the community that the repair issues would be addressed as long as they were given. And so people were then at that time advised to share their needs with people in the office. The property management promised that they were going to be working diligently to get these repairs done. Fast forward to today, around November, I received emails and calls from residents saying they had no heat. This was when it was below, it was freezing, and other things. And I began to find out that none of the things that were supposed to have been happening was not happening for the community. So we decided we need to engage them again, and found out that residents were experiencing retaliatory actions because they had spoke out in April. So that's one of the things that happens a lot of times in these communities, is that once you speak out, then now your repair request really may be never heard, because they feel like they want to show you.
Yes, ma'am.
And so that happened to this community. Residents were, their yard wasn't being cut, their requests weren't being answered. Among all the other things, I have so many pictures and videos. They have a rat infestation problem on Trellis Lane. What we did was we created this repair form, what we passed out, and there was a QR code that people could scan, which was easy for that community to scan with their phone and upload what their repair issues were. And we found a pattern. When we talk about patterns, we found a pattern on Trellis Lane that spoke to why there is the big rat and rodent infestation, where the rats were so big they were, biting into people's apartments, and people with kids had 3 and 4 rodents that were large, almost as large as cats. And all these things weren't being answered in a timely fashion. And one of the things that we work on too is not only with residents, but we tried to work with property management to say there are organizations that can assist. If you don't have the capacity to do these repairs, we would
Yes,
like to
ma'am.
work with with the property management team there to get these repairs done. That has been a slow process. So what we decided to do was just continue to work with the residents so that they wouldn't be displaced. So the way that we did that is we developed a plan. And so the plan was around identifying community partners to assist Ladera Crest with code enforcement,
Yes, ma'am.
landlord and tenant rights, fair housing policies, and legal advice. Some residents are now, because they've received retaliatory actions, are in threat of being evicted, are looking at legal representation. So
Yes, ma'am.
we have identified partners, legal aid, and some other partners to help with that. So we also connect and convene. So that is what we do. And we also identify residents who had those inhabitable conditions with that QR code there, and link them to partners who can help. Like, for instance, those without heat, or they when it was first publicized that there was a community without heat, they came in and the property came in and did some light maintenance where they could use their emergency heat, but that in turn increased their light bills. So now they're all receiving light bills
Yeah.
that have increased like 50% from last month. So we're identifying partners that can assist with the rent. But all of these things is something that can be applied legally too, as well as all of this is happening. So
Yes,
the
ma'am.
same things are happening in Cleveland. I'm receiving participants participating in our advocacy skills training that we provide for communities. I had a couple of residents from Cleveland to talk about that. And so we
Yes,
are
ma'am.
also continuing to meet with Ladera Crest Resource Center staff and to try to repair the relationship there, because communities want to use the resource center to have meetings, and it's
Yes, ma'am.
hard there. So those are some of the issues that we've been working on. And we also want to, like I said, assist the landlord with the issues around capacity with repairs. So we're not just only there for residents. However, we are resident centered because that is our
Absolutely.
focus. But we also want to provide resources to assist the property management if there's some issues there, to assist the resource center, to assist legal aid on how to connect with the community, and your resident leader there in the community. If there's a way we can assist her, we will be happy to do that too.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, absolutely. Hold on. Woo, that was a lot. And I thank you for all of that, man. Oh man. Oh, the rats. The And I mean, it's multiple neighborhoods. I remember working with, like I said, this took me back when I started doing all of this to Rolling Hills, and how devastating a lot of that work was. I remember, for instance, similar to what you're saying, a big issue that we had was the fear that residents had of speaking up. And so I remember some of these people said that the reason that they did not want to say nothing was because if anything was done to repair or to make the houses better, they feared rent increases. And so I think one of the big, most prevalent thoughts that come to my mind when I think about all of these issues, but especially the sewer, right, is that these are environmental hazards. Now, NBN, we have been working closely with now Wake Forest, Atrium Health in multiple capacities now, dealing with the Weaver fire and dealing with some of the environmental justice initiatives that are starting to be I guess, introduced to our overall community. Being a longtime organizer, I guess the idea of environmental work wasn't something that was big on my mind. I'm thinking justice in all these areas, but I wasn't thinking about how many of these issues are environmental issues. So when we talk about the rats chewing through stuff, when we talk about the heat, when we talk about what happens to a home from flooding, from backed up pipes, and the health issues that many people who are already low income, who barely, will go to a doctor or can afford to go to a doctor, or, just don't have the resources to or feel like, sometimes the resource is the time it take to catch the bus, the time to miss work to set that appointment. And so they'll just deal. A lot of these people will just deal with these issues. And it's very disturbing. And so yeah, what what
Can I
what
interject real quick?
yes, ma'am.
I was going to say, I also want to add a new thing that we're finding to be happening in Ladera Crest. There were several people who had CPS called on them because of the conditions of their home and are now going through a CPS case. And so that is something that we're seeing as well.
So because of the condition of the home,
No
CPS
heat.
is getting called on the resident. So they got to deal with the issue of what possibly losing their children
Yes, we have several residents that are facing that.
because of the issues of the complex that really has nothing to do with them, I would assume. These particular issues. Whew, man. So I mean, we call HUD, we call the HUD representative, we call the complaint line. We reach out to outside resources to get them to help these property owners and to get them to help the community members. So the two most prevalent thoughts that I had initially looking at some of this is, is there any reason property owners wouldn't want to get these things fixed? Like, could there be ulterior motives?
Yes. So what you will see is anytime someone wants to sell a property or do something different with the property, you won't see as much upkeep. And so the things that they were sharing with the windows are not being fixed in Cleveland, they know that they're about to tear down those properties. They're probably allocating money differently. I don't know. But I know the same situations are happening in Ladera Crest because they're trying to the rent there has increased to $900 and some dollars, $1,000 a month. These residents are paying for units that are deplorable. But one lady I spoke to when we were handing out flyers the other day is paying $1,000, and she has rodents that can get into her home. They can board it up. They still are able to chew through, and nobody is coming from the property management. Also, the property management team has been fired. So there's nobody really in the office right now to answer anything. There's no maintenance. So that just the problem again continues and persists. And so we can help the way we can, but the capacity is the issue. I see it as an emergency that's like a city emergency, at this point.
Yes,
and again, like I said, this is not just Ladera Crest. This is Cleveland. This is happening across the city, and someone that works for Neighbors for Better Neighborhoods can only tell this story because they see the pattern. And I only know because I used to work at Neighbors for Better Neighborhoods, so you can kind of have a broader understanding of what's happening in those communities because you're working and you can see the patterns. And I'll be doggone, it's always the same thing. It's letting go of the property, not answering the repair request. Stopping people from using the community centers in the community. I've seen that over and over again, making those community rooms into storage rooms so that they can't be utilized. That type of thing. So
basically,
and I'll shut up now. Yeah.
stop an organization. So to that point, and now Miss Burton, who is the resident leader in the Deercrest, she has informed us that some things have been done in the similar to what you said. Some things have been done in the Deercrest, and I think she was telling that there is new management over there. So she said some progress has started to happen. You know, they had issues with the trash cans, not the dumpsters not being dumped. And we read here, even at Neighbors for Better Neighborhood, that the city paid for their own people to come out and dump. Like, I had a photo that I wanted to share, and I didn't. When we were in Rolling Hills, they had a huge dumpster overflow with trash. From your experience, how can, I guess, how can private owners get away with something like that?
If nobody says anything, then it continues to happen. They
Mhm.
know, but you just have to continue to, it's only when residents speak up. Like if residents aren't speaking up, even if I speak up as far as working for Partnership for Prosperity, they'll just begin to say that I just am a complainer and I like to complain about stuff. But until
Mhm.
residents speak up, and continue to press, but because of the tradition in our country of
Mhm.
those who are living in subsidized housing, experiencing discrimination, experiencing disparities, and all of these things. It is by habit that we've been doing that. So we really have to coach ourselves as a community, even if we feel like we're poor in money, we have to know that we're rich in other things, and be able to share what we're experiencing. So that's what Partnership for Prosperity wants to do. It wants to raise up the experiences of the community and even of the organizations like yourself, service providers who are trying to help the community. What are your issues that you're having or barriers that you're having in trying to do the work that you're doing? But what we know is the immediate response needed is the housing crisis that is happening across the country. We know that funding is changing. HUD is trying to get out of the business of doing Section 8 and all of that kind of thing. So we have, over the years, talked about that asset-based community development model that Neighbors for Better Neighborhoods has, because I think it's imperative to continue to share with them the opportunity to use their gifts, skills, and talents to move them forward. Who in the community can help the community have these meetings, pass out the flyers? Who can show people how to fill out the form? We got to come together and use our gifts, skills, and talents to move the community forward and to move them out of a situation where they're just complaining, but they're also helping to find the solutions too.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so and let's okay, so I probably could have started there, but you told us a little bit just now, but can you tell us more about Partners for Prosperity? You on mute.
Partnership for Prosperity is committed to working to promote awareness, engagement, and action in factors that affect the social determinants of health. So we look at the disparities around housing, education, food and food insecurity, health and wellness, and jobs and workforce. And so
Mhm.
our mission is to engage people with lived experiences in creating solutions by doing three things. We want to eliminate the silos that communities have, that makes them feel like their voice can't be heard, and also eliminating silos for service providers like yourself and doing the work that you're doing. We also want to align resources. So that's why we're working with the community to align resources around what they need. Align resources also for the property management, for service providers. So we're always trying to find a way to align resources. We have a community resource map with over 1,000 resources that can be found at our website, Partnership for Prosperity, WS, make sure I got it right. I got too much going on in my head. I'll get that to you later, but it also can be found at Forsyth County website as well. But we also want to advocate for policies through a racial equity lens. And advocating for policies is, for instance, when we're looking at this issue with rent going up, or we're looking at eviction diversion, there's policies that can say if someone is facing eviction and they are low income, they automatically receive legal representation. Because we know that if a person has legal representation, 9 times out of 10, the eviction won't end up on their record. We know that once an eviction ends up on a person's record, it sets them back, 7 years? So we want to move the family forward. We want to help try to divert some of those evictions, and we know that the legal representation can do it. And so our vision is we want to see a community where childhood poverty doesn't exist. And
Yes,
so
ma'am.
that's how we work. We go into communities and we provide, we generate data. We want to know what the demographics is of that community. We stay in a community and work for about 2 years. We do a survey around housing and all the social determinants of health to find out what the experiences are. We have study circles, about 6 sessions where they come up with solutions. They bring in service providers. The service providers are able to share what they actually do, because that's another thing. Another issue that we're finding is community don't really know what service providers do. So we have found a way to highlight those service providers in a 4 session around the issue. So if it's a housing study circle, we'll bring in Habitat, the city of Winston Salem, Forsyth County, Power Up to share what they do, and then residents can share what their experiences are, develop a relationship with that service provider. So now they have a go-to. But at the end, they create a community plan for each one of those social determinants of health. So when we leave a community, they will have a plan for housing. They will have a plan for education. They will have a community plan for food and security that has been backed by data, and that has been backed by a study circle that has identified the experiences, identified solutions, identified the providers that actually work. So they have a clear plan. And so then once they do that plan, we help them to implement it. We also talk to service providers that they have been working with and provide what's called feedback loops to say, this is what the community is experiencing when working with your organization. For instance, with Castle Heights, we worked with that community, a community that's mostly homeowners. And what we found out is that they have repair needs. Those repair needs are also exasperated by the fact that the average income is around $44,000, which means they don't qualify for a lot of the repair programs that exist in our city, but it's also not enough money to do any repairs. So we want to, one, advocate for them to raise the income guidelines for HUD and other things. So we do a lot, and we are a very small organization, but we try to do what we can. But we also, collaboration is the key. We're working with organizations like Neighbors for Better Neighborhoods. Any residents that we work with, we encourage them to take asset-based community development and the other trainings that you offer. We tell them about the opportunities for the grassroots grants that you have there, and the amazing technical assistance that you provide. So we try to connect the dots, if you will.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Okay, thank you so much for that. All right, so you guys are obviously got y'all handful similar to us, and I absolutely thank you. We thank you for the wonderful work that y'all do at Partnership for Prosperity. And I think again, when I started looking at this cycle, the first group of people who came to my mind to collaborate with in this moment was you guys, knowing the work that you personally played in a lot of the issues that took place historically, and knowing the work that you guys do now, it was a no-brainer to call you, Ms. Patterson. So with that, I look forward, and we at Neighbors for Better Neighborhoods. Firstly, we appreciate all the work that you did as the Neighbors for Better Neighborhoods alumni. So thank you. We give you your flowers. And thank you so much for your contribution historically and currently that you helped this organization with. And I am also very excited and want to make sure that our collaboration efforts are strengthened. I know I'll be a shameless plug here. I know you, Mimi's here with us as well. We do have an ABCD training coming up between the two organizations, correct, guys? If one of y'all can speak on that.
Yes, and I'm excited about that because that's the key to any work that anybody wants to do in the community. You got to know about that asset-based community development model, or you'll be going backwards. You got to know how to develop the assets in the community and not always looking at disparities.
Yes, ma'am. So, Mimi, when is that taking place?
That training is, I believe it's a Wednesday, February 22nd at 5:30, happening at the Malloy Jordan East Winston Library branch. So I'll
Okay.
type that in the chat.
Yes, ma'am.
February 22nd.
Carver School
5:30.
Road. Okay, and so for everyone
think
who's
it's that.
online.
Yeah, Carver School Road. What's that East Winston library branch? That road is 3rd.
Yeah, I
I
just
thought it was
Maybe.
7th. It's 7th.
Yeah, 7th.
Yeah, because I had an event there recently, so that's one reason why I know.
that's
I
7th
think-
Street.
I know.
Okay.
That's what I said. It was weird. I
I just
looked
say
it up,
behind
though.
McDonald's.
Yeah.
Behind McDonald's.
I put my email address and my cell number in the chat just in case someone needs to contact me.
Yes, ma'am. And so for
Thank you.
everyone that don't know, specifically on I guess Facebook, whoever watches this, Mimi is our training and technical assistance coordinator. So we are excited to have and look forward to partnering with Partnership for Prosperity on this training initiative of ours. And so if you don't know what ABCD community development is, ABCD is merely asset-based community development. And so the idea is to develop the communities from the inside out, looking at the gifts, skills, and talents of the community members to take a down up or a grassroots approach instead of looking at these, as Arlethea mentioned, the different organizations as they come in. It's not okay, organizations looking at the issue and coming down to solve the problems. It's the community members developing the problems or coming together, organizing, developing, I guess, their own ideas and seeing how they can organize around the issues themselves, and then reaching up to the different organizations and groups like ours and Partnership for Prosperity for assistance in handling issues themselves, similar to what we're talking about now. Even as we highlight issues and use our platforms to highlight issues that our different resident leaders are finding, it is the case that our resident leaders organize and found a lot of these issues themselves. We are merely using this space to leverage resources as this partnership entails. So with that, yeah, we got that taking place. Okay, so one of the things you mentioned, Ms. Patterson, and the two things that you mentioned, one, as you went over those, what were they called? Disparities of health. I was like, in my mind, I put an asterisk for a 9th one. And it was like the environment and the role. Because it's like I'm just really coming into the terms of, hold up, this environment thing been really hindering us. And we got so many things that we worried about that it's not something that we noticeably mention about issues in our community. So working closely with Ms. Veronica Bidding and looking at the work she's done with different Black environmental groups that meet in New Orleans, the stuff that she's just done in Egypt, and as she shares so much with me, it's like, dang, our community has had significant environmental issues dealing with these same areas that we don't necessarily acknowledge. And we had a Mr. Omega Wilson and his wife who were on our organizer circle last year talk about the issues they had in little old Graham, North Carolina. But because of the fact that they took an environmental approach to their issues, they were able to get policies, going back to that policy word, they were able to get policies put into place in a way that they wouldn't if they would have looked at it from a civil rights perspective. So again, as we work a little bit more with Mr. Dr. Corey Walker at Wake Forest and their initiative, and as we continue to learn more, I just encourage us all to become more familiar with how we can solve many of our issues through the environmental justice lens. In addition, a lot of these issues are human rights issues. So lastly, with this point, we were talking to Miss Hazel Mack, who was over legal aid at one point, and she started to inform us as we just picked her brain in an organizing perspective. She was telling us about how many of the issues that we are seeing with our privately owned residential units have to do with policies that were put into place in the 1990s by Republican-led governments. And so being the civics teacher is like, okay, well, I need to become more familiar with what those policies were and how those policies are now affecting our communities, because it was the privatization of these HUD units, so once something is privatized, you take a lot of responsibility off of the federal or local government. So that's the thing that when she was telling us this information, and I'm only going to speak real briefly on it because obviously I got to learn more. So by the time we get to the 21st, we will have actual data that we can analyze specific to this issue. And if you know anything, Ms. Patterson, please please inform us. But as she was telling us about these policies, the light bulb went off in my head pertaining to what Ms. Lisa was sharing, specific with when she reached out to the city of Winston-Salem. And they told her that they couldn't do anything because they weren't contracted. How connected all of this was. Like the city can't do anything. And so her organization efforts in her community has the story overall, and she's working right now, but the story overall was real unraveling in regards to a lot of things that have taken place in the community. So I'll say it's not our job or it's not our intention either to put elected officials or city or, many of these people on blast, but I do think that our communities deserve accountability nonetheless. And so nonetheless, that's what we need and want and desire within our community. So I'm gonna give you the floor again, Ms. Patterson, to speak on anything that I just mentioned.
So looking at policies, that is a big piece of the puzzle and making sure that we have policies. One of the things that we have been doing is we've been connecting with policymakers like some of our representatives, Tanika Brown and some of the others, and making them aware of what's been going on. And we have been invited to the table with some other core leaders to actually draft things that can go into bill and things like that. So we're actually looking at ways that we can affect policies around, the things that people are facing around evictions and other housing issues. So that is a big piece. hopefully that answers your question. Was there another question I didn't answer?
No, man, I just,
Okay.
if it was anything that I mentioned that you wanted to speak on.
Okay.
So what we will do, and I have a doctor, State Representative Amber Baker. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Miss Brown, Miss Baker, I think before our 21st meeting, and you are more than welcome to join us with that meeting as well as we talk about the solutions to many of these problems and figure out how to go further with it. Of course, we would love a seat at the table if invited to help with the policy
Yes,
creation and
absolutely.
crafting. Yes, ma'am.
And as far as who should I add to invite, because I can invite one person. If you tell me who that is, I can go ahead and send her the information to be a part of that group. We can talk about it after this meeting. But absolutely.
So if you want to invite me, I can be there.
Perfect.
And if anybody else want, speak now, y'all can. I don't
But
have
it's an
to.
opportunity to learn.
Mhm.
Not only will you be making suggestions, but you'll also have an opportunity to look at bills before she sends them out, and you can make suggestions on what to add or not add.
Yes, ma'am.
So it'll be an opportunity to look at some of the things, and also to bring up or make her aware of some things that we need to work on. And so as you're doing your work in your community, if there's some specific policies, I know I'm always looking at policy. That's one of my big things. So I'll start sharing information with you guys.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, and there's actually something going on in the next couple of days that you might want to attend around this very topic through Policy Link, but I'll send you the information.
Yes, ma'am. And I'll take a step back. Is there any resident leader who's with us right now or on Facebook who would like to be a part of that group? Because I definitely do not have to be that person. If we got one spot and the resident leader wants that spot, feel free, because it's the learning experience.
When did you say it is, Chris? What's the date again?
So we haven't really met we haven't met formally yet, but it'll be a couple of community leaders, representatives from communities, or they work for organizations to come together and meet with our representative, Kamika Brown, to look at some bills as they're being drafted, or also to offer recommendations. It'll be an opportunity to learn more from the legislative piece about how that process works, but it also gives us a chance to make referrals or suggestions.
Those spots.
So if people want to learn more about advocacy work and policy, if that's your real interest in learning about that piece, then it would be great for somebody who wanted to do it.
There you go, Miss Travis.
You interested, Geraldine?
Can you hear me? I'm driving. I'm sorry. I'm on my way to pick up my grandson. Yes. I
Okay,
am interested. I just need to know the time, the date. I'm trying to get back into the loop of things, and this conversation is so interesting. And I have my sister in the car listening, so we are just glad Mrs. Patterson was invited. Thank you, Chris, for having her, and thank you, Mrs. Patterson, for coming.
absolutely.
So just tell me when, the date, and the time, please, ma'am.
Sure. I'll get your information from Chris. We're going to set it up
Okay.
around our schedule. So we'll be able to send out a poll
Okay.
and figure out when we want to meet and things like that.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you so much. I'm parking now, so I'll stop driving and I can listen more intently.
Yes, ma'am. Miss
Thank you.
Travick, please tell your sister I said I haven't seen you guys in a while.
I will.
Hi, Chris.
Hello.
Hi, Chris.
I see your name, Chiquita. I'm going to put you down too.
Yes, ma'am. How you doing?
Thank
It's a
you.
pleasure to see you.
Hi, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So yeah, what we're also doing, we're in the process of, I guess, starting, I'm gonna call them committees within NBN. So people who want to be more locked in and focus on city council or school board or House of Representatives, Senate, the state legislative, or even our county commissioner. So that way we can, attend meetings, bring that information back and do what you're saying, So I've actually spoken with it's another organization. I don't have the lady's card in front of me, but I guess this is the second conversation I've had this week regarding policy and policymakers and policy groups. And so specifically, and even with Miss Kamika Brown, that's on the state level. So if any, I know you got Miss Shakita, you got Miss Travick, any other resident leaders interested in that state work. So one of the things, because similar, Miss Sandra, one of the things we've had issues with is the roads, and that's something we will be addressing soon as well. But what many of the roads that we have been dealing with, we found that nothing can be done because it's a state road. Nothing can be done on the city level because they're state roads. So those issues have to be addressed by a Miss Brown or Miss Baker, Dr. Brown or Dr. Baker. I don't know if she's Dr. Brown, but I'm gonna call it Dr. Brown right now. Dr. Brown or Dr. Baker. One of them House of Representative members, or of course our Senator, Mr. Paulo, would also have to, Dr. Paulo, make everybody doctor. One of those people would have to be responsible, or all of them. And I do think, even with what you're saying, I don't know if all three of them are at the table, but for instance, with some of these issues, I know Ms. Travick is in, I believe, the 72nd, so she would be a part of Mrs. Baker's district. But if this is state policy, it's something that both of them dealing with. So I think it makes sense for us to find ways to work with both of our state representatives in that manner. Yes. Okay, so I will also make sure I do my part to talk to Ms. Hazel, figure out what that state policy in the 1990s was regarding the privatization of those homes. So when we come back and look at solutions to dealing with these communities, of course, we got one already, contacting our HUD representative in the complaint line, looking at policies and policy writing. And of course, there'll be more, and there'll be more people. So we look to have representatives from the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, or Human Relations Department of the City of Winston-Salem on our next organizer circle, in addition to hopefully Ms. Arlethea Patterson again, and maybe some representatives as well. Is there, so there was a question in the chat. Hold on, let me get back to that. Ms. Patterson, someone asked, Ms. Shanita Johnson, and Ms. Johnson, you can ask your question out loud if you want to, or I could just state it.
Well, you could have just read it. Basically, I just wanted to know if there was a local or state policy concerning the evictions, putting those on the records of those who have been evicted. That was something that I did not know, because it sounds like it's like they're doing it as a credit rating, and then it when you have that for 7 years, it really keeps people all out of certain places. So it restricts them getting into certain places for to live. So I just wanted to know if there was a local, or is it a state policy that this occurs?
So that is something that I'm still that I need to do more research on, but I certainly can provide that information at our next time I'm on, or I can just shoot you an email with the information. But yes, that is one problem that we know as we're running into communities. That's why we've been decided to be at all of the eviction diversion meetings, because that is one piece that we know continues to keep a family back. Is when there is eviction on the head of household record. It also limits, like you said, even if they, get an increase in pay, it also still limits where they can move. So I will get that information. That is a great question.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. But to that point, it is serving like what's it called? A credit report. It's a part of the credit. And so with that, I mean, I know a lot of people just growing up in these communities who have had to deal with it. And so that you will be denied housing, just like you will be denied credit card or any kind of loan. It's a big issue that a lot of people deal with, especially when you're going to complexes. You might get around it by going to a private owner who owns an individual single home, and they aren't necessarily through a real estate group. It might work with you based off personality, but it becomes very, very difficult for people to get placed. Also, and I see your question, Ms. Travick. I was talking to, I guess, a representative of what's that? Experiments in self-reliance. Is that what it's called? Yeah, and I met a lady this weekend who was telling me that they are having a lot of difficulty placing people and working with these private homeowners, and they have actually denied vouchers from certain residents, specifically many of the Black residents. So it becomes an extra thing. If you got this on your record, plus you already got private owners who receive vouchers who could just deny it for any reason, it becomes a more difficult thing for people to get placed. Ms. Trapp, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. First, I have a question, but my first one is just going to be something for clarity. Didn't I ask my question? When Lisa Davis mentioned calling the city about the conditions at Cleveland Homes, and she said the city said hands off, and you touched on that a few minutes ago, Chris. And I can't remember. And I thought about city code violations. Did she say, or did someone say that the city said they still couldn't touch it, even though there are city code violations in place?
Well, I think what she was referring to was the work to fix the let's say the housing, the flooding, to fix it initially, the emergency issue. They could not touch that because they weren't contracted to. So if, let's say it was a code issue, but you got somebody to fix this, that's contracted to fix this, the city basically said, these people have to fix it. All we do over here is things I'm gonna use the term infrastructure, and I'm still paraphrasing, so I don't want nobody to take my words verbatim, but basically they deal with the pipes and everything else. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so my question is also, I drive by, I see it, and I read about these concerns that we're talking about today. So I can understand that the plight that's going on. So it looks like there is a war on poverty, or the poor versus rich, where we don't have the equipment to win because it does take money. But on the flip side of this urgent concern, how do we educate people to really take sometimes personal responsibility to take care of the places where they reside? I think sometimes it's a personal responsibility to really take care of where you live. And sometimes it may be happening. I'm sure that it's not happening. So what would we do? How can we educate people to really appreciate what's given to them where they live to make it better?
Yes.
So as we're working with communities, I know for us, we actually work with organizations that do just that. We have iCare that is working with any community that we work with around how the upkeep of home. Also, Habitat for Humanity, they offer courses on how to maintain your home, how to do small fixes. So we actually partner with those organizations and small groups that provide those types of trainings and education.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Patterson. I would also add,
Okay, thank you so much.
and that information is so critical. Let's say with one of those windows, because there was one that was a bullet hole. I actually took the picture. If you in a community that deals with different high levels of crime, sometimes random, many times people are just innocent victims. And so, hey, this is not my fault, this happened. Sometimes there are issues that can be residents' fault or partly residents' faults. And if they, let's say, somebody got into a fight, somebody came and broke a window. Okay, well, I had something to do with this because me and this person got into an issue. So I'm not gonna get it fixed and my family is gonna suffer. Sometimes there are different situations and different reasons. It could have been somebody just mad, at this person, that person, whatever. But the resident may not feel like they have a right to request a fix. We already talked about things like people don't want prices to go up, but sometimes for whatever reason, people don't feel like they deserve fair treatment. And so those resources become critical because knowing your rights and knowing that no matter what, you deserve to have quality, certain things, first of all, codes adhered to in your home. Second of all, quality standard of living. If you are paying rent in a facility, certain amenities are absolutely foundational. So I shared some information a while back on tenant rights that we all need to be privy of. And also, as resident leaders, when we get this information, when we get in touch with these resources, we have to make sure that we get that information to our different residents to make sure that we all are informed. And I think lastly, what I would say is the united power of any group of neighbors around a situation. If it's a situation that a neighbor calls, then okay, we need to, when we are socially holding each other to a higher standard, to a higher level of accountability collectively and righteously, right? Sometimes people are self-righteous. If we righteously doing it and we know this is the street gonna be clean, we gonna make sure, y'all throw this trash down, pick it up. It can be small, it can be large, but not being self-righteous and getting people education and also making sure that we collectively hold each other accountable as neighbors. I would say that's my input on that.
I would agree with that. Holding one another accountable takes a village.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you
Neighbors
so much.
for better neighborhoods. I see your there's a Miss Patterson gave us a how to file a complaint with HUD information inside of the chat. Please take a look at that. Information about filing the complaint with HUD. Absolutely. Do we have any more questions? Those are some wonderful questions. Do we have any questions coming from Facebook? Let's check that chat and see if anything is coming from that direction. Before we, while we're segueing, I just also want to share a few announcements as we get closer to ending time. Let me see. Share my screen. And I just want to highlight some things from our newsletter. If you on Facebook or live and you would like to get added to NBN's newsletter, please reach out to us and we'll make sure we get you as a part of our server. Of course, we had the organizer circle today, things that's happening in the community. We have a REI training coming up real soon, February 8th and 9th in the community. Let me see if I can zoom in. Okay, it's fine. So yeah, REI training, groundwater trainer, 1 groundwater, February 8th at 9 a.m., 9 to 12, and then March 9th and 10th from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. We got REI Latinx Challenge. Our next organizer circle will be on Tuesday, February 21st at 12:30. Part 2 of this series, Exploitation in Privately Owned Housing Units, the resources and the solutions. So as I knew, we started getting some access to the resources. Today, Ms. Patterson is a resource. She shared with us the HUD representation, the complaint line. We got information in the chat as we speak. Same Facebook live stream, same Zoom link. If you had any issues getting on today, I'm sorry for that. We just had our Black Business Summit last Friday, an excellent event. But I will mention, if anyone is interested in joining the Black Chamber of Commerce, feel free to reach out to me or the Winston Salem Enterprise Center. There's a Mr. Patterson who is associated with the Black Chamber. I think he's the president, who I'll get you in touch with, or anybody else associated with it. If you already are part of the Black Chamber of Commerce, feel free to be a shameless plug for that. We have an African American read-in that's taking place this upcoming Thursday at 4 p.m. at the Delta Arts Center, 2611 New Walkertown Road. And so the Malloy Jordan East Winston Heritage Center, friends of the Malloy Jordan, will be meeting at the Delta Arts Center to, I guess, have that read-in. Also Thursday, after you attend that read-in, feel free to come to the Second Harvest Food Bank's event entitled Sweet Potato or Pumpkin Pie, a community conversation. I believe author Dr. William T. Lewis will be present. If not, I know they will be talking about his book. And so information on this is on our newsletter. We can get you more information if you like. Just feel free to text, chat, or text in the chat, send us a Facebook link. Or we have that information on all of our pages. That will take place at the Second Harvest Food Bank, 3330 Shore Fair Drive. The Winston-Salem Urban League Young Professionals are having an event entitled Celebrate Black Love for Our Culture and Community, February 16th, 2023, 6 o'clock p.m., Hoops Beer Company, 840 Millwork Street in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. There's a bit.ly link as well if you want to sign up for that. And then Bookmarks is doing story time and celebration. Celebrate Black Stories, Voices and Authors, Saturday, February 18th, 2023 at 10:30 a.m. And so if you have any more information, any weekly, daily, please feel free to send us your links, your flyers at admin@nbncommunity.org so we can get your information shared with our organizations as well. Lastly, tonight, and I don't have the specific flyer for that, the City of Winston-Salem will, City Councilwoman Barbara Burke is having a community meeting tonight. Let me get you the official. And I know we have resident leaders so involved with that, but anybody want to speak on that? Of course I can, but I know people get tired of my voice, and that's what I used to tell my students. So if anybody else want to talk about that event, please feel free.
Well, it'll be held tonight, Chris, at Galilee Missionary Baptist Church on, I think that's Northampton Road. And it's
Yes, ma'am.
regarding it's regarding community violence. Again,
Yes,
at
ma'am.
7 p.m. tonight at Galilee Baptist Church, Missionary
Yes,
Baptist
ma'am.
Church.
So February 7th, that's today, right? 6 p.m. And that's 4129
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, 6
Northampton Drive.
p.m. 6 p.m. Sorry, I said 7 a.m. It's at 6 p.m. Mhm.
You're absolutely fine. Thank you so much, Ms. Travick. That's a gun violence community briefing from City Councilwoman Barbara Haynes Burke. I believe NBN will be present there to speak about it from a cure violence perspective, but I'm not over cure violence. I don't know. So let me see. We got 2 more messages in the chat. Okay. Information
I think I
about
saw Reverend
healing.
Covington as part of that panel tonight, Chris.
Yes, ma'am. I
You
think
said NBN? Okay.
I didn't see a panel. I didn't see any information on the panel, but I did hear that we were, but I didn't see the panel. But like I said, I
Okay.
do think I was kind of thinking that she was, but I didn't know for sure. So whatever panel information you got is probably accurate. but I didn't. If you feel free to send me that information as well. All right. So no further ado, any comments, questions, concerns? If not, I'm asking for some last words from Ms. Arlethea Patterson. Again, thank you so much for joining us, Ms. Patterson.
I have really enjoyed spending time with you all today. I look forward to another opportunity. I wanted to let everybody know I did put some resources for residents in the community. HUD file, the 1-800 complaint line, information about 311 if they don't have it and who to contact, the hours, and also the eviction diversion clinic that I forgot to mention that happens every Tuesday at DSS. They're sitting out in the lobby. So if anyone is facing evictions and needs assistance, they can always go to DSS on Tuesdays and be seen right there in the lobby between 9 a.m. and 12 p.m. Or they can reach out to legal aid. They have a 1-800 number. They are actually focused on eviction diversion right now, so because they know it's such a need. So thank you all, and I look forward to seeing you all soon. Continue to do the great work that you're doing in your communities, and I am here any way that I can assist.
Thanks, Arlita. I have taken down the chat and I've copied it, and we'll send it out to resident leaders later so that none of this information goes missed.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, Mimi.
Thanks,
Okay.
Mimi.
So we do have
Thank
this
you.
recorded, and we will be sharing this on our Facebook page. Of course, this will also be shared on YouTube. So the conversation regarding the different issues, regarding the solutions, some of them, the resources that Ms. Patterson mentioned, please refer any resident, any community member, or anybody who has a question in these areas to this video Facebook page to get this information. If you don't, feel like repeating yourself or going over something that was covered. If you knew it was covered here and it was done well, just refer them back to the link and they can get this information. Thank you everyone for your time today. And we look forward to having you on February 21st at our next organizer circle revolving the resources and solutions to the community concerns.
Thank you, Chris. Great job today.
Thank you so much, Ms. Travick. Thank you everyone for your participation.
Thank
Thank
you.
Great
you,
work,
Ms.
Chris.
Thank you.
Patterson.
Great
Thank
work, Chris.
you.
Yeah.
Yes,
Have a
Appreciate
great
you, Sean.
day. Thank you.
You all have a wonderful,
Peace to all.
wonderful day. Miss Shakira. How was it from
Good
your end,
job.
Mimi?
It was great. I'm gonna try to download it and cut it up some. Yeah, there are lots of great things about it.
Okay, wonderful. All right. Well, you have a wonderful day.
You too. See you later. Talk soon.
Did it just go live on Facebook? Was it recorded on
I believe it just went live, so I'm gonna download it from that.
Okay, so I think next time we gotta make sure we record it to Zoom
Indeed.
as well. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you, Mimi, for everything.
Of course.
All right.
You too. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Take care.